So a few days ago, Nick Wright had a very interesting idea on the Colin Cowherd podcast. His idea was to make the playoffs a draft. By making the playoffs a draft, there can be many benefits. Think about it. If the first seed for each conference gets the first pick of the opponent they would like to play in the first round, then during the regular season, teams will be way more motivated to actually try, and it could possibly discourage the good old Kawhi Leonard load management cheese. And this wouldn't just encourage teams to try for the first seed, but it generally encourages them to try to get any higher seed, whether it be 1, 2, or 3. Because with a higher seed, you can have a higher chance of getting your best possible matchup. This draft idea does not only benefit the higher seeds, but it also makes the NBA playoffs a lot more interesting on the side of the team who gets picked by the higher seeds. It would be a grudge match because the teams who got picked may play with a chip on their shoulders because they may take it as, why did you pick us? You think we're that easy to beat? And that can give those lower seeded teams an extra boost of motivation, which could potentially lead to more upsets. And one reason why so many people love March Madness is because anything can happen and there are plenty of upsets. So in theory, it could bring much more intrigue and excitement to the playoffs. The playoffs now can be completely unfair because take the Eastern Conference right now for example. The Celtics, who earned the second seed, could potentially get a worse matchup than the seed right below them. The Celtics are rewarded with the Miami Heat first round because they played better in the regular season. But the third seed Sixers get a much easier matchup with the Brooklyn Nets team that is basically a bunch of role players and Mikal Bridges, who is rising as a star. But if Boston got the second pick in the playoff opponent draft, then they would get a more favorable matchup than the Sixers will because they would get to pick first. Another problem with the playoffs today is that it can be more beneficial to be a worse seed than to be a high seed. Take the Lakers for example. They have been making a pretty big comeback as the season comes to a close, but they would almost like to be in the play-in rather than be the 5th seed and play the Suns in the first round. So you can kind of see how the lower seeds almost have more control over the playoffs in that perspective. Granted, they are not guaranteed to make it past the play-in, but there is a bit of control there. This idea of a playoff draft seems great to me because it truly rewards teams for being great in the regular season and punishes teams for purposely trying to lose games to get the matchups they want. However, I think that this draft format should only be for the first round and not the following rounds after, because after that first round, I think it will be mostly the best seeded teams left over unless an unlikely upset happens. One downside of this idea that I can think of is unexpected circumstances. For example, injuries or personal issues like the whole Andrew Wiggins situation. If a team loses a great player, they could drop in the standings, and they would get punished for that since they may not get a pick at their opponent since they will be a low seed. I think something that plays a role in the deciding factor of whether or not to go through with this idea is the injury issue. The way that the playoffs are set up right now, players can get injured and have personal time and still make the playoffs with a good chance of winning. A team like the Warriors are a great example because they can still be title contenders even though they are the 6th seed, and they were dealing with injuries to Steph Curry and Wiggins' personal issue. Anyways, that's going to do it for this video, so make sure you hit subscribe, leave a like, and comment down below if you guys think this is a good idea or a bad idea, and maybe the possible downsides to this.